everybody, this is Dragyn here. Welcome to the Dragyn Den. Pull up a seat and enjoy a drink of your choice. Hot, cold, iced, everything is available to you. Welcome to another podcast episode. Today's going to be an interesting one because I kind of ran out of ideas at one point to kind of do filler podcast episodes until I move. So luckily though, my friend Spam, who's been on the podcast before, gave me a good idea to talk about personal and professional developments, kind of like over time basically. And it's an interesting one because of course Toastmasters will be mentioned here, fair warning, but also there's other areas too where I've done really well, but then also had setbacks and kind of went backwards instead of forwards. So there's a lot of that I get to talk about with you guys today. So my first real start to looking at myself professionally and like developing professional skills would be back in university, because you're transitioning from that high school teenage kid, and some would argue though that I wasn't really a kid. I definitely was a nerd for sure, with like how much I'm interested in reading, history, education, English, all these like really nerdy typical subjects. But I didn't really look into those things more in a professional way until really university, where things definitely ramped up. You had to think in a much more critical way. You couldn't take resources or things you read at face value. You had to really go into things more, especially in the English classes I looked at. We had to not only consider the words on the page or the images or the movies or the films or TV shows even that we looked at, but you had to think about, okay, this is the director's background, here is the author's background, how would these influences play a role in this book, and really do that hardcore critical thinking investigative skills. And that's when I realized that I can't always portray myself as a quiet, nerdy kid. You have to also stretch yourself and develop more professionally. And I had those realizations all throughout university for sure. Did I put them into practice? Not so much. Online I did. I will say this. There's definitely a big disconnect between in real life and online. Where in real life, I was the quiet, shy, trying to survive kind of person that I still am today, pretty much. But I never networked. I never went out of my way to meet new people or even connect with my classmates in any way. Just through project work, really. Whereas online, though, I definitely ramped up a lot of different skills because I was a moderator for Patrick Static. I got to help run his Facebook page at one point, like on social media, and share his posts and really act in that kind of way, like network in the social networking scene pretty much. And I met a ton of friends, had a lot of going for me in terms of that. And then started up YouTube myself, streaming myself, hit pretty big milestones both ways. And then that kind of crashed and fell apart. And soon my online life matched my in real life life. In real life, that. And it's been an interesting kind of to see how I've maintained basically my personal developments throughout university. I never got better or improved or really took off in a sense. And then suddenly, though, I had a huge shift. I stopped thinking personally. I focused a whole hardcore. I had a hardcore focus more on the professional side of things, where 2016 was a rough year for a lot of things, and 2017 was rough too for different reasons. Where 2016, in real life friends poofed. Like, things fell apart. My relationship ended, and suddenly the socializing that I had was gone in real life. 2017 hit, and my online social life took a huge hit. I left modding for Pat, and then slowly but surely, the people that I had connections with just left and stopped noticing me or paying attention to me or realizing my importance because, oh, you're not a mod anymore, you're just a person online, you're just that username online now. So it really is interesting that those big personal hits happened like year after year, and I'm still working on rebounding from all that, of course, because you really start struggling to meet new people and trusting them again when you've taken some pretty hard hits like that. So personally, I didn't focus on myself at all after those two things happened. 2017 hit in January, and I just made a change. I was like, you know what? Friendships will last if they last. They will exist. They will happen if they happen. What I can do, though, is take charge. I have 3 semesters left of college, of university. I need to focus on this. And that's what I did. And long story short, I failed my first year of university. And I went on academic probation, and I stayed on probation right till I graduated. So I had to keep above a 2.0 GPA each semester. It wasn't based on the year, it was on each semester. And I had worked up quite well. I got back up to about 2.6 the year before, so 2016. I still managed to hang on to a fairly decent GPA. I know it's not the golden 3.0, but I'll get to that. But then the next semester, that one semester before my practicums, boom, I hit 2.8, 2.9, almost a 3.0. And that really showed you how much I focused on things. I realized, no, I gotta do more. I have to do more. So I hit the ground running. I just studied, worked hard, did a bunch of research, focused on the classes, and really paid attention to what it meant to be a teacher and how you have to professionally put yourself out there. And so I learned how to keep my Facebook pretty private. Twitter not so much, because I felt like I had a really unique username, right? Like the Dragyn 2121 was the one I had before. And, you know, I felt pretty safe and protected that way, both that way and YouTube, and post things that I enjoyed doing that wouldn't be too damaging in a professional sense. Like I tried to kind of do that. And even posting on social media, I started to limit myself on Facebook quite a bit. Not really on Twitter, because again, I felt safe on Twitter with having a unique username not related to my real name at all. And yeah, and I just really paid attention to a lot of that to keep myself professional, because as some of you may know, if you're a teacher, you have to be professional basically 24/7, because your life online is everywhere. It will be everywhere. It will be seen, noticed, tracked, all that kind of stuff. So I really paid attention to all that. And then my practicums hit, and that's when professionally I was growing as a teacher. I remember walking into my first practicum with no public speaking skills at all. Like online I was pretty good. Like I wasn't really using webcam or anything like that, so just to talk like this, easy peasy, I got this kind of thing, you know. But then standing in front of a crowd or a bunch of people and having very little confidence in myself, because I am a bigger person, and the voice I have too is quite soft. So to practice these skills of, you have to speak in front of class, in front of a group of students, you have to change and shift your voice, which is still something I'm working on, because as a woman, our voices are not as noticeably firm or strict like men. And so of course it's a thing I'm still continuing to work on and develop. But all of these things suddenly came into hyper-focus for me. And luckily enough, throughout that first practicum, the strategies my mentor used by having my desk at the front of the room, and instead of facing the door, like to the side of the room, we had my desk face directly the students the entire time I worked there. And so you start getting more comfortable and at ease, because you're like, well, I'm here 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, in front of students. they have to look at me, they have to stare at me. I have to pay attention to what business casual meant for clothes and teaching professional clothes and wearing nice tops and blouses and dress pants and skirts and nice shoes, because that was definitely a thing students commented on, was shoes quite a bit for me. Even in the UK, that was definitely a thing they commented on was, Miss, how come you're wearing, why are you wearing trainers? For those that don't know, sneakers. And I'd be like, I have to run up 5 sets of stairs every day. But then I found nicer, like, formal trainers at one point that passed. A little bit passed. Not fully passed, but passed, you know? In other words, I didn't get comments on my shoes after I found some nicer runners. But yeah, suddenly it was like, professionally, it wasn't just your image online, your social footprint. It was the way you spoke, the way you dressed, the way you managed situations and audiences. And it really took off. And it all started in that first practicum where I had a lot of these realizations and tried my best to really fit in and look like a teacher. So that's where that professionalism came in. And yeah, like I said, socially, none of it really kept going. I still have connections with a few of the teachers from that first practicum. And every once in a while I get a chance to comment on their things. They comment on my things, but we don't have like a friendship from it. Because that wasn't something I was focusing on. I was like, cool, yeah, I'll add you, follow your journey, and that was that. And never made any closer connections with anyone. Cue my second practicum, my very last semester at the school. That's when things not only professionally kicked up, but I had to think a lot on my feet. Because I was a fairly young university student, graduating with my bachelor's degree at, oh man, it's been 3 years, almost to this month, 3 years since I've graduated. And so I would have been 24, 23? 23, yeah, 23, because I'm 26 right now, so 23, being a young 23-year-old teacher, going into a practicum, teaching adults full-time. There was a lot to consider professionally in that role, because I was old enough to be a lot of these adults' child. I was that age, that perfect age, or even younger than their children. And so you had to really do a lot of thinking and training on, okay, I may be younger than you are, but I am in this role as a teacher. I am here to help you succeed if you want to succeed, and you must respect me for that. You have to listen to my instructions, listen to my classroom rules, listen to this, and drill it in. Because I still ran into problems with a few students where it's like, well, you don't know anything. You haven't lived a life. We've lived a life. You haven't. And some of that backlash hit. So professionally in that situation and context, I really had to work on that authority. And basically trying to aim for respect, get respect, and give respect. Like, there's that relationship between in the classroom and build a rapport with them. And even with my colleagues, I was the youngest teacher at that college that did the academic upgrading program. Even then, professionally too, you had to really learn how to vouch for yourself, stand up for yourself in some cases too. When it came to assessment grading and such, I had to be honest, but also let them know that, no, I see it in this way. I want to give this grade to the students. Unless you can sit down and teach me another way that I can assess my students and give them the grade that you would give them, this is my way. This is what I'm giving them, and what I've learned from my mentor teacher before. Because my second practicum at the college, I actually got a short-term teaching position there the following semester, because my practicum followed in like the beginning of 2017, ended in 2017. Then I had no more coursework, but I couldn't graduate till June 2018. So they hired me right away, even though I didn't have my teaching certificate that yet, or my teaching qualifications. I didn't have that yet. It was coming later. They basically said, we will hire you from January to April, and once those things come in, photocopy it, send it to us, and we'll keep it on your file. So very lucky and fortunate that way, but there was a lot that I had to learn professionally. I had to stand up for myself, I had to vouch for myself, I had to defend myself as a younger person to not only my students, but to the staff. And it's a skill that didn't fully develop. I will admit that. I couldn't always do it. I've always struggled with standing up. If you've heard the stand-up speech from the contests way back in March, you'll know. So, but I started to lean towards it. I did start picking up things that people were telling me to do. And yeah, boom, professionally there, graduated, and I was a teacher, a full-on teacher. And so boom, professionalism is a huge part of my life still. Personally though, I, again, at that, in the practicum and the position, like between that transition, not really making friends. I made good networking connections. My mentor still agrees to do reference letters or references for me. He's like, keep me on there, I'll do it for you. But making friendships and connections and having like a regular checkup or talking with these people after a couple of years now, I don't have that. So it was an interesting thing. But at that time though, I found a D&D group and got way involved with other online communities. So my friendship in that regards personally helped, and I felt really supported, loved, cared for, and then things shifted. Again, unfortunately, I just got built up to that. Okay, I've got online friends again. That's great. They're my real friends. I may not have anyone in my real life to go hang out with or people locally close to me, but I've got these people, and that's great. Absolutely. Then my life takes another change again. So personally and professionally, I developed quite a bit. Knew my shortcomings, knew my shortfalls, and wanted to work on it and be challenged with it. Hence why I took a teaching position in the UK. To really get challenged. Boy, was I challenged in those regards that I knew I wanted to work on. And then personally, I was like, cool, we're going to make it work. I live in the UK. I will sacrifice sleep maybe a couple nights a week or whatever just to hang out and be with my friends, because I want to be a good friend. I don't want to just, because I'm in the UK, doesn't mean we're not friends. 5-hour time difference for most of my East Coast friends. I will make it work. But that's when the shift I noticed a shift personally, where I was doing all of those things. I would wake up at like midnight to play D&D at like 1:30 in the morning my time. And I would do that. I would make that sacrifice and go to work that Monday morning on like 4 hours of sleep and just do it for my friends, because that's how much of a friend or how much I cared about them. I didn't want to lose them. But then that's when I noticed that, but they're not necessarily doing it for me. I did have one friend in the group, like the D&D group, that we tried. We like, it would be like morning for her and like mid-afternoon for me on the weekend. And we would make it work. We would watch like D&D shows together. We watch something together, hang out and talk. So we had that at least, but the others, I was like, I'm not getting anything back. The same choices or options available to me, they weren't taking on themselves either. And that led for huge fallout when I came back from the UK. So personally, again, I took that hit and got frustrated and angry and confused, because online you have to have a voice. You have to be able to speak and be heard and understood. Yet, because, I don't know, the softness of my voice, the way my voice is picked up online, like in Discord or Skype and things like that, It's so soft that a lot of it would be overstepped, overheard, or disregarded. And it was frustrating. I was like, why can't I do this? And it's something I'm still working on. I'm still working on like finding my voice, getting to a right tone when needed, to be heard about something serious. So I felt like I kept losing it. I was losing my voice, losing my presence in this group quite a bit. And it was frustrating, especially if you don't have enough time to reflect on it, or you couldn't have the skills to reflect on it like I kind of luckily developed now. So it led to a lot of anger, frustration, and it built in that 2 years I was in the UK for. Came back home and I was like, hell yeah, I'm only 2 hours behind most of these people. We're gonna get reconnected, it'll balance out again, it should be fine, it'll work out. Yet, it kept happening. So this is all personally. I'm kind of shifted to a personal rant here a little bit, which I'm sorry about, but I'll reflect back on professionally in the UK as well in a sec. But the same things kept happening, even when I was home, and could make things work easier for people. But no, I was realizing that, I am rescheduling my life around hanging out with everyone and making time for them. But no one is doing that for me. And so when I came back last year, a lot of rough conversations were had with a lot of people. And suddenly this amazing, huge online circle I had has become just about 5 or 6 of us instead now. Instead of having like a huge group of like 10 up to 15 people or whatever that I had at one point that were pretty close, it's completely shrunk down again. And now I'm in this place where I've moved back home. I've lost that kind of huge connections I had online. UK, I didn't make friends either. I didn't have like a regular group of friends. I did with my first roommates, my first year. We're all pretty close, and we still kind of send messages to each other here and there. But again, it's a distant relationship. It's not like they live in my city with me and we can go get coffee or hang out. Not that we would do that right now with the pandemic, but you know, like having a physical friend that you can do things with. I came back with not a lot of that, even online connections with people. And even when I was in the UK, having like friendships wasn't working for me. I just couldn't make friends. So personally, I've hit like I'm pretty much at my lowest that I could be in development with socially developments and stuff like that. I'm pretty much at my lowest that I've ever been. Very small circle of friends online that I'm still struggling with, even though they've agreed to be with me and stick it out with me. I'm still struggling with. So personally, I've hit a pretty bad low in terms of social circling. There's more to it in the terms of like how I'm coping and reacting to things now that's different, that I'll get to as well. I might as well just keep talking about personally here for a little bit. I'm very sorry, this is a very disjointed, not fully prepared podcast episode today for you guys, so I apologize, but I just needed to get something recorded. But then I came back home and I was at my lowest, because when I talk about professional developments in the UK as a teacher, I came home with very little confidence in myself based on the lack of support. The way I chose to handle things too in the UK wasn't necessarily good. I just felt stranded, and so I just kept myself in that victim kind of mode for quite a while, and I could have again stood up for myself, vouched for myself, done more, but I didn't. So there's a lot of that I've reflected on now. But since I've come home though, and I realized, damn, I'm socially at my lowest. I don't feel well constantly, like mentally. I don't have confidence. I don't know how to cope. I'm pretty much stuck here in a pandemic with no good personal skills or decent personal skills. What do I do? I'm at my lowest. I've never been that low before. Took a little while because I moved back in March, but finally at the end of July I was like, you know what, therapy. It's time. I need to figure out my brain. I need to work on a lot of things and find a way to stretch myself and do things that I normally wouldn't do. Again, pandemic though has pretty much put me in like a weird place where I've learned so much about myself, and I continue to learn more based on things I've been reading and doing online. But I'm kind of at that point where I'm like, until I feel safe in the pandemic and it's pretty much at a safe level, I can't go do things or meet people really in my city until things open up or until people are vaccinated, we hit a certain percentage and all this kind of stuff. Until I am personally comfortable as well. That's a big factor too. Besides the city and the governments or whatever they decide to do to choose to open things up, until I am personally ready to go out there and do things that I'm pretty much prepared to do, I'm at that weird lingo. Like, I'm in limbo. So the things I've learned since starting therapy, I haven't been to therapy in a few months. I just haven't been able to afford it with a lot of stuff going on. But basically from August till about March, April. March, April. I have worked on a lot of things. I realized things that happened in the UK weren't all my fault. And the friends that I've lost and things I've experienced hasn't really 100% been my fault, like I've been blaming myself for. It's been a combination of things, and even though it's not like a huge, big, tragic event that happened or a big trauma that happened, I've been working through PTSD, and that kind of hint to a diagnosis. It's not fully diagnosed in me, absolutely not, but it is like I have signs of it. And so working through a lot of the different activities and things I've done with my therapist, it's like, oh, okay, I know kind of how to cope with it now. I don't have to be 100% busy all the time to keep my mind off of things. I can actually choose to handle things in different ways, personally. So instead of me waking up in the middle of the night panicking because I had a dream about a UK teaching experience, or being stranded somewhere, or feeling like I'm stranded somewhere and like waking up and just panicking, there's things that I've done now to kind of help with that, a lot of that. And when I start thinking about the UK too, I'm not trembling. I'm not going to break down and cry at this point. Some days I do. It's not a perfect system, obviously, but when I open up about it, I'm not in that state where I am emotional, or I'm distraught, or I'm left in a state where I can't function. I worked on ways to do something like that. Coloring meditative books. Bro, adult coloring books are amazing for me. I know some people don't like it because there's a lot of pressure to make it look nice and pretty, and you have to choose the right colors, blah, blah, blah. But for me, man, I just pick a set of colors and I go. And it's really relaxing. Or I can put on a show that I like, or a movie I like. Even if I've seen it 100 times, I will put it on, and that can be like a nice hour and a half, 2 hour break that is needed, because my mind constantly goes. It never stops for anything. It goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. So that's the thing that I cope with. I find ways to slow it down. So personally, I've been working on this, and I'm getting to a point where I want to put myself out there. Maybe get on a dating app, or even a social app where you can meet friends as well as potentially dating, and get ready out there and try. Because personally, I haven't had much experience in terms of relationships and dating either. That kind of started and stopped with my long distance relationship that ended in 2016. So I'm getting to that point where I'm like, you know what? I worked through a lot of this personal shit. It's not perfect. I'm not perfect. I realize that, and it's okay. You just have to find the people that will accept the non-perfect in you and kind of safely push you in a direction that you want to get to. So that's the personal development that I've hit. A lot of lows. High school man was my highest. I had a really large group of friends in the city. We would go out and do a lot of things together. It was great. I had and then I started online friendships too, and boom, I had a nice balance between it. It was working out quite well. Then, yeah, boom, fell apart easily within 2 years of each other. 2016, 2017, boom. Resurgence happened, and socially I felt great, and mentally I was kind of getting to a place where, I wasn't coping 100% well, maybe, but I had ways to cope. And it was okay during the resurgence of a D&D group to play with and friends and such. But then that fell apart. And suddenly I was left, like I said last year, socially and personally at my lowest. Couldn't find ways to escape what had happened in the UK, the state that I was in after I left the UK, then re-emerging through a pandemic. And then just a lot of that hit hard, and working through it, even to this day, is still kind of crazy nightmare. I'm not gonna lie. But it's getting a little easier. Not perfectly easy, but a little easier. And I'm at a point where I want to pop on apps like Bumble and do BFF and find friends in the city and chat with people, and hopefully get to a state where I feel safe enough after vaccines and such where I can go meet people. In that regard, I feel like I'm working on it. Personally, I'm getting there. Things that I want to work on personally, though, to continue this development, to wrap up this segment of personal development, is working on having the confidence to say what I need to say. And I'm phrasing it that way because standing up for yourself or being assertive can have negative connotations to it, especially at your job, at your work, where you're at. There's the chances of it not working out well. And I mean, standing up for yourself, to say what you need to say, that doesn't always work out either. But I want to get to a point where I feel like I can do it. I can at least say something finally about something I don't like, or I'm not okay with. And that sounds sad, doesn't it? It really does. I don't have that backbone in me per se. But I want to work on that. I want to really get to a point where I can say something and do something. If I feel like I didn't like it, or it caused some sort of reaction or a trigger in me, to actually say something about it instead of locking myself away and hiding and then pretending it never happened. That's a goal I want to hit. When will I hit it? I'm not setting a timeline. I have a life to live. If I limit myself to a timeline, that will be hyperfixated on it, and it won't necessarily be good. So I have to be careful with it, work at my own pace, work on it with my therapist when I get back into it, and start doing that, because I deserve more than what I've been getting in my life. I do. I recognize that quite a bit now, is that, I don't want to be stuck in a state of mind where I feel like, well, the universe hates me, so I deserve it. I don't want that phrase, that's way of life anymore. I want to really say, no, I deserve better. This happened. I didn't like it. I didn't appreciate it. It made me feel this way. You need to know this, because I still want you around in my life, or I want this to happen still for me, but you need to know that these things weren't okay, and hopefully we can work around it. I can say it here in the podcast. It's a lot harder for me personally to do it to a person. So that is a skill I want to develop and work on, for sure, because currently I don't really handle things well. I will have friends that, I value friendship. One of the things I like and need in a friendship is balance. So what I mean by that is I'll plan a few hangouts and sessions and chill with people. I'll plan it, we'll make it happen, we'll do it. But I want that reciprocated back. I want someone to also be able to reach out to me and be like, hey, it's been a little while since we've hung out, had a great time last time, thank you for doing it. How about this time you come over to my place, or I will set the Zoom link and we can watch this. Are you down for that? I want that reciprocation and that balance a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfectly balanced. I can easily set up Zoom links and hangouts. Bam, I do it quite often, thanks to Toastmasters. But to have someone say, hey, how about we try something like this? And would you be willing to hang out with me and try it? Yeah, having that would be nice every once in a while, instead of me constantly controlling when we hang out, because that's not a good thing. It really isn't. So I gotta stand up for myself like that, every once in a while, and say, hey, or even conversations too. I feel like I get steamrolled in conversations frequently. I got to work on that skill where I'm like, hey, I want to point out that I brought up this topic and we didn't finish talking about it. Could we get back to it? Can we cycle back to it? Saying something like that, or just saying, hey, well, I'm really glad that you got that off your chest and you talked about it. I'm really happy that you're feeling better, or you got to where you need to get to in that conversation. Can we now cycle back to where I am and where I'm at? And can I talk about this with you now that we're at a pretty okay balanced place? I gotta work on that skill, personally, for sure. Because I usually let myself get steamrolled. I will start a conversation with someone and they will take over, and I just let it happen. Because I'm a listener usually, not really a talker. So I gotta work on that skill, personally. Damn, that went on for a while. But there's that two parts there to say what I want to say and really say it. One thing is finding my voice and being heard, understood, and seen. So the next part of, hey, I need you to be aware of something, and this happened, it made me feel this way. What can we work together to make sure it doesn't happen again, or find a compromise with what happened? There's those two parts there that I want to work on personally. Now, professionally, I did admit, after I graduated and after Northwest, I had recognized some things I wanted to work on as a teacher and work on those professional skills. Had that all in mind and set up as a goal. UK came, and then suddenly I was kind of bombarded a little bit with how my role changed. So the role that I anticipated and what I was going into wasn't the role that I had. It was partially the role I had, but the other role, being an actual teacher and the first school I was at, didn't happen. I only was a cover supervisor, is what they called it in the UK, a supply teacher for just a school. So then I felt a little disjointed, because I had these skills that I wanted to work on, and then suddenly I didn't have regular classes or regular classroom or regular space even in the school to work on that skill. Suddenly it was just adapting on the fly, running around like crazy, suddenly being told that you were teaching a period to not teaching it suddenly, but you have to go do this instead, to also having a free period and you had agreed to do something, and then suddenly you had to disregard that agreement because suddenly you have to go cover and teach it. It was a constant adjustment, a constant sort of just working on the fly. And in that situation, I didn't get formally trained for that role. I was not partnered up with the other overseas trained teachers, like the other Canadians in the school, to work on the development or work on the translation of the curriculum from Canadian curriculum to UK curriculum. I wasn't put in that group or in that support either. I was left on my own, pretty much. And my manager that they paired me up with was one of the busiest ladies in the school. when you are ahead of all of behavior management in an entire school, as well as the senior leadership team, teachers wise, it was so hard to get a hold of her and do things with her. So it was just in that place where I'm like, cool, I literally was just put here to do this because there was nowhere else to put me, and I didn't have anyone else to be with. That first year was hard. I couldn't really develop a lot of skills that I wanted to. I kind of had to go in each day by day going, well, I hope it's going to be okay. I hope today's going to work out well. I hope that I will be lucky today, and have good kids and good classes that won't try to make their substitute teacher cry. Let's hope for the best. And I treated it that way. So professionally, I couldn't grow in the way I wanted to, and that was upsetting and hard, and I didn't get the support from the school or the agency with it either, despite actually at the beginning standing up for myself and saying, this wasn't what I wanted. You said I would be teaching. Why am I not teaching? And just saying, them basically telling me that, no matter what, even in this role, Violet, you are still technically teaching, and you're still technically developing as a teacher, and it still counts as teaching hours. You're going to be fine. And brushing it off. After hearing that a little too often throughout that first year, you start feeling like you can't vouch for yourself anymore. You can't. But then something happened towards the end of that school year in the UK, that first school year, where I put myself out there. I applied they had an English teacher opening at the school. They had one. I applied. Didn't hear back after a month or so. Reapplied. Suddenly, I was told that my application got moved to the bottom of the other interested applications, despite working for the school already and having a context with the school. That was a hard hit. Boom, third time. I tried again. Or tried to follow up on it. Met with the head of English and basically told me straight up that they already have a Canadian teacher at part of their English team. It'd be really hard to bring me on and support me fully. Which is a really good thing to know, because you're like, yeah, absolutely, okay, that makes sense. It's hard to get that support for two teachers who are still learning the curriculum. For sure. But then she started to go through my application piece by piece and cut it down. And cut me down as a cover supervisor. Not in a nice way. Like, I felt as a cover supervisor, you could work on these areas and develop them a bit more before I take you on. Wasn't phrased that way. It was like, you as a cover supervisor, poor classroom management. I didn't see anything really being constructively done to improve. You didn't do it. It was that. A hit. That hit hard. Professionally, I was like, crap, like if I'm not a good cover supervisor or a good substitute teacher, then maybe I'm not going to be a good teacher. And it led to a pretty low spiral after being cut down like that in the middle of the school day, where I still had to go back and teach, by the way. It was like during a lunch break. And then I had to cover a couple classes right after that. Like, hard, right? But then I was like, no, you know what? The school doesn't want me. It's made itself pretty clear. I didn't grow and develop in the school in the way they wanted. I didn't grow and develop in this way that I wanted. I need out. So it was during VidCon London. I went to VidCon London, humble brag, but where I went outside to get fresh air, and I got a phone call from the agency because I reached out to whoever I could. The head of the agency, the head of recruitment. I reached out, and I was like, I need a solution. I'm here for another year. My visa's 2 years. I want to make the most of it. Travel-wise, personally-wise, experience-wise, career-wise. I need this. I need another school to go to. And boom. The second school was found. But it was a repeat of a little bit of what happened at the previous school. Got told, yes, you have a full-time English teaching contract with the new school starting September. Boom. perfect, ideal. It was at a Catholic college, which always still made me, a Catholic school that made me a little nervous because I haven't had the best relationship with Catholic schools growing up. But it was a really great place. The atmosphere, the staff there were really funny, super great. Always invited me out to drinks every Friday night. Super great. But I arrived, and I spent the first few days in a haze, lost. Because I was told during the orientation back, I think in the July of that year, that they will figure out a timetable for me and figure out the situation, because they didn't have a teaching schedule for me yet during orientation. And they were like, I'm not too sure what's going on with this, Violet, but we'll take a look into it and see like what's going on. No one knew when September hit. My first few days, no one knew what was happening. No one knew what was going on. So then I was like the English department assistant, which was fine, because then I got to learn, where things were in the school, like where the photocopiers were, the printers were, where I could work in a situation on the fly, like staff room. There's also like a boardroom that I could have worked in. I learned like a few things like that I could adapt to. I could also work in the English office if it wasn't too busy or chaotic. Cool, I learned those things. And then I was like, great. Then the head of English told me that no, unfortunately, the way things went, we prioritized our NQTs, our new qualified teachers, because they have to do 1 year of full-time teaching to get their full teaching qualified, like their teacher qualifications. They have to do a full year full-time, so they prioritize them. But what they didn't realize was that, we also have this other new teacher coming in as well. We don't have a position available until there's an English teacher that was leaving. She wasn't set to leave until the end of January, though. So then they're like, we have to find something for you to do. And it ended up being a mixture of things at the start. I did a cover supervisor role again and worked with the cover supervisor manager. And that was pretty okay. It was kind of a nice way to, again, learn the school, figure out where things were, what department was where. Kind of took it on, and I was like, all right, I'll do this, because you're still figuring out my program and what I'll be doing here. Then they proposed something else. Then I became the study room supervisor with no clear end date. That's what was told to me. No clear end date to this role. We're not too sure when this teacher will leave, or if she'll leave early, if she'll leave later. We don't know. Be the study room supervisor. Make it your own. And the funny thing about that role was, they told me going in that they haven't had a study room supervisor since most of those students started in the sixth form college. So UK people, you know what I'm talking about. North Americans, other education systems, you don't know. But basically, quick little lesson here. UK system, they go by years instead of grades. That's a big difference. And after year 11, they do year 10, year 11. They go for a qualification called GCSEs. And basically, on the results or how they do on those, leads to a few different options. I'm not going to go into all the options, but the school that I was at had a sixth form college where they can apply to become and take their next qualification before they go to university or wherever. And that's their A-levels. And so A-level qualification is in that building that I was told that since some of them started their A-levels, it's a 2-year program, I think, usually. Yeah, year 12, year 13. Now, since the beginning of the program, they haven't had a study room supervisor in that room at all. My first thought, based on the year that I just had, they're setting me up for failure. Again. They're setting me up for failure again. However, I got into the room. I had a pretty crappy situation with some management things. But got some support. Finally, had a supervisor in the next room beside me for a little while there when he took over as the head of the college, head of the sixth form. And then had head of year 12 help me as well. He was an English teacher too, so that kind of was like a nice extra buffer there. And we created a plan. We created a plan to help me be a little more successful in there. So it wasn't like I completely gave up in both years. I still tried my best to reach out for support where I could and stand up for myself where I could. It got to a point where enough rejections and enough changes where that's when I gave up. So I did that for a couple months, and we created a good plan. I created a behavior log where, if repeat offenders kept doing things, that's when I would mark them down in the log. If it was just a one-time or two-time thing, and it was quite managed well, they wouldn't go on the list. But some repeat things, we went into there and we tried to investigate why they were acting out, or talk to their teachers and figure out what was going on there. So I did a lot of that work, which felt really good and rewarding, because some students became more understanding to my position and my situation. I could talk a little more candidly with them as well, because they were older students and they were genuinely curious about, like, okay, aren't you a qualified teacher though? Why are you here doing a study room position or like a covers position? That makes no sense. And so you could talk a little more candidly with the students there and build a rapport in oddly that weird way. But then also I got to support them through college reference letters and things like that too, which was really neat and a really rewarding experience after all. Then towards the end of that term, I suddenly was given an opportunity to teach some English classes. One of our English teachers there basically moved into a French and English role. So then when they split her classes up like that, I got half of her classes, and I got some of her English classes while also being the study room supervisor. I was like, great, I'm finally teaching English a little bit. I'm getting that role, and I was thinking, great, that's going to get me into like teaching English full time the next term, the next semester, because that makes sense. They're easing me in, getting me ready, getting me prepared, boom, boom, boom. Perfect. And then things actually ended up working out. The teacher that was leaving at the end of January, supposedly, actually got approved to leave before the Christmas break, before the winter break. Then I took on her classes, or some of her classes, some not. And boom, I was teaching English full time there for about 2 weeks at the end of that term. Gearing up, getting ready, taking on the curriculum, finishing up that term, finishing up the projects. Then it was all me. It was going to be all me starting the year. That's what was promised. And I was starting to get used to the curriculum and learn about how the teachers share resources. They all follow the same schedule. I was learning it and getting used to it. Last day of that term, another change happened. I would not be teaching English full-time like I thought. They brought back an English teacher to take on the other English teacher's classes full-time. Slap in the face. I was there for that role. I was there for that position. I was hired for that. And they did that. So what happened? I got to keep some of those other English classes that I took on for the other teacher that got split English-French. But then, instead of me teaching mainly English, I started teaching mostly French. I taught more French than I taught English, and then they added more to it. Religious studies they added in there, and then a photography class I covered once every fortnight. Try to stand up for myself again, because it was definitely not what I wanted. And I was angry. I was upset. I remember being told, this is your new timetable. The room that you took over for the teacher that left is no longer your room. Clear out. And you have until the end of the school day, because we had only a half day. But they basically said you have until 3:20 to clear out that room, pack it all up. And you are now going to be in like 4 different classrooms teaching. Yeah, no, I was angry. I went, because a lot of the colleagues left right at that lunch break, which made sense because they were free, they're good to go. They didn't have a lot of crazy changes to their timetables, and they were able to keep their classrooms. It made sense, so they went to the pub already. Yes, at noon, by the way. UK is a whole different thing. I joined them about an hour later after having to stuff a bunch of things in my bag. Had a box with me as well, because I did set things up in that classroom. I assumed it was going to be mine. Got to the pub finally, and everyone's like, Violet, you're here, you're well done, like, congratulations, you're going to be teaching English full time, you finally did it, you got what you wanted and needed, congrats. Then they saw my face. And I was like, I didn't get it. That's not my reality. And I showed them my timetable, and they're like, Violet, no, that's not good. It's not a good timetable, because the classes they gave me in French were like, the younger years, like year 7, year 8. So, introductory French, I could pick it up with them and learn it with them. Would be fine. But the year 8s they gave me were their system, well, like every school system sort of has like, your average classes, right? Like your mainstream classes, and you have like your pure, your IB, or AP, higher achieving classes and students and sections. And your lower ones, who, students just struggled with various needs and wants and such like that. And it was during that time where I showed them my timetable, we were all talking about it and discussing it, that the year 8s they gave me were all in the low attainment kind of streamline, like pathway. Like low sections, bottom of the barrel, kind of. That's how they were treated. That's what they were put in. That's what they were told. With that comes a lot of behavior issues, and the sections I had, some of the teachers were like, I know those kids. They're not easy. Even I struggle with them. And they're not easy. And it came out of that conversation that a lot of us realized that they don't want you to be permanently here. For some reason, despite the things I did in the study room, the things I supported and helped with during that first term, they realized they don't want you here. You're going to be replaced probably. Or you're not going to finish out the school year. They basically gave you these few classes, like the lower students, lower achieving classes, because they could fix them the next year. How am I supposed to grow professionally in a situation and setting like that? And so, yeah, I'm realizing I'm talking quite a bit about this. And I think I've talked about this quite a few times, but for those that didn't know, this is kind of the setup. So, boom, called the agency, and I didn't even go to the recruitment management. I went straight to the top, calling her in tears a couple days later, because it was hitting me quite hard, and I was getting messages from people too saying, get out of there, get out of that situation, get out, because it's not going to be healthy for you to deal with. So I called her in tears, told her what was going on. This wasn't what I signed up for. This wasn't the email that I signed in contract for. It's not what I wanted. And guess what the response was again? Well, give it a shot. Try it for 2 weeks at the beginning of the term. Try it for 2 weeks. See how you do. See the support there that they have for you. What's happening. Try it out. Teaching is teaching. You're getting experience. You'll be fine. Again, no. And I tried telling her, I'm like, this isn't what I want though. And she's like, I understand, but again, it'd be good for you to give it a try. And then the one thing she told me in that sentence that just like really felt like she twisted the knife was, if you do a good job or manage well and like survive the year, you will still get a reference out of it, which was a good thing. You want to get a reference, so maybe you should just do what they say so you can get a reference. Makes sense, of course. Obviously, we want a good relationship with the school and references and things for when I go back to Canada. Makes sense, totally. But why should I subjugate myself to things I don't know how to teach or don't know what to teach to do that? I would have been way happier if they kept the English classes they gave me, put me in the study room supervisor, and just did that. I would have been very happy with that. And I even proposed that as an option to her. She was my main point of contact with the head teacher. And a lot of people said, no, if you're an agency staff, do not go directly to the head or the head teacher, because then they'll see that you don't trust the agency, so they shouldn't trust the agency, and it could all like really fall apart. So I never went to the principal. Never went to the head teacher directly. I just did all my correspondence through them. they let me down. 2 weeks in, I told her, this isn't going to work. Like the head of my agency, this isn't going to work. I'm not going to survive this. I'm not going to be okay. I'm not going to be learning. I'm not going to become a good teacher by doing this. Nothing. She tried. She said she tried to negotiate what they could do for me. Didn't work out. Instead, the opposite happened. I got told even worse news that after that term ended in April, so January to April, after that term, they'll try to find me, or during this term, they're going to try to find me a new school to work at. Because the teacher that left the French department, they found a replacement for, and they would be starting at April. So then that teacher would come back, take on the French load from both the other English teacher that did half English, half French, and then me that's doing French, English, religious, and all the other subjects. That teacher's going to come back. So boom, French would be removed from my timetable. But also, English would be removed from my timetable because that English teacher that I kind of halvesies on with would be returned back to full-time English. And then all I would be left teaching would be the RS a few times a week and the photography once a fortnight. And they hired a study room supervisor after I went to teaching full-time. So even that wasn't an option. They were going to let me go. I didn't handle that well. I'm realizing that professionally I did not handle that well. I basically gave up on my classes at that point. I went there, I taught them what I could teach them, despite the behavior issues I experienced in the classrooms and the lack of support I had from the French departments and others. Like, I just went in, did what I could, tried not to lose my top. Still got yelled at by leadership team in the school for not handling things well and for allowing kids to throw dictionaries out the window, which they didn't do in front of me or in the class. And I didn't have keys. They didn't give me keys to lock up the room. It wasn't my responsibility to lock up the room. So the kids went back and tried to get me fired. I had students trying to get me fired, and yet I was the one yelled at. So really, those environments, like, I've come to realize now, of course, through like reflecting on it, therapy, all that kind of stuff, that I was set up to fail. And I did. Professionally, boom, came back to Canada. I'm still trying to find a teaching job, by the way. I haven't found one in 15 months. But I'm, knock on wood, I've got something lined up here. But I had to rework myself through all this. Because, yeah, confidence shot. Completely gone and destroyed. The things that I felt confident about beforehand, like thanks to Norquest and that experience, leading into here and then wanting to work on the things that I knew I lacked after that Norquest experience, the end of that time when I moved back due to the pandemic in March, gone. None of that remained. Cue to the present. Professionally developing here. Here we go. Toastmasters. I mean, huge boost. Absolute huge boost. To have that help work on my speech, work on how I talk and portray myself, and work on these personal projects like the Emotional Intelligence Project, the Focus on the Positives Project. Boom. I'm in a much better state, for sure, than I was 15 months ago. Absolutely. And now I'm taking on more. And professionally, I am now heading into a way different direction. If you guys listened to the podcast last week, you know that I've taken on leadership roles now in Toastmasters. And I think that's going to help a lot to not only build my confidence, continue building it up, because it's still not fully there. I'm still very nervous to get back teaching in a classroom again, and with dealing with a school and management again. I still have a lot of hesitation with that. However, I'm getting into these leadership roles now for the upcoming year. I'm very excited because it will help build up my confidence still, and hopefully if I do get the teaching position, knock on wood, I will be set up more. I will have more support now due to this. But these leadership roles will also help really find my voice. If I'm finally put into a leadership role that I'm trusted in, I was voted into, that should help find my voice, and I can work on the skills that I need to work on. and it's through Toastmasters. It's a voluntary basis. I'm not making any money off of it. None of it at all. Purely voluntary. I'm doing all these things. But hopefully, through this next year, I will work on getting confidence back. I will have a voice. I will have the skills to hopefully manage a room of students again. And I will get not only back to the place I was leaving Norquest to go to the UK, but hopefully I'm going to get to a point where I can be even further ahead with my skills. And there's also a lot of things that have helped with this too, not just Toastmasters, and now taking on leadership roles from working on these personal communication skills and things that I worked on throughout levels 1 and 2. Now that I'm going into 3, 4, 5. Personally, I've definitely grown through Toastmasters, for sure. I can communicate better. I don't hesitate when I want to say things that I want to say, per se. Especially having the podcast here super helps with all this, too. I can now work on the confidence and really finding my voice now in a leadership role. And that is what I'm looking forward to. That is the big thing I super need right now. Considering going through that experience with you all again. And just realizing that, yeah, bam, people set me up to fail. And then I failed hard and I took it on hard. I didn't cope well. I let those students down in the UK. I totally did. I recognize that now. Absolutely. That I still have a lot of guilt over, for sure. I shouldn't have done that. I should have, despite the crap that I was going through, I should have still focused on the teaching and having them succeed. But I didn't. So now it's time, now that I've worked personally through like a lot of that guilt and stuff, even though it's still there, I'm working through it. I'm now kind of in the point of my life where I'm in a different direction. It's time to leave it behind and grow from it and learn from it. Have these realizations, keep them in my pocket, and whenever I try to turn and go back into that state, I can look back and be like, no, you are not that person anymore. It's time for that, both personally and professionally at this point. That's the direction I'm headed towards. And it'll be an interesting journey. And I hope a lot of you will be here for it and listen to this more and more and listen to the podcast and see how much I can grow and develop in the way that I want to. And now that I've said it out loud, the way that I want to, here in the podcast, I have something to go back to and listen to again. Maybe in a couple months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. And this can be a nice point of reference to say, I was there and now I'm here. And that's the goal. That's the podcast episode today. It's a little disjointed, a little all over the place. I'm very sorry about that. I could have prepared it a bit more, but time just escaped from me again. But there you go. Personally, that's my journey that I've been through and the development I'm going through. Professionally, that's where I've been, where I've been, where I'm at, and where I hope to go. And it's going to be a hard journey, absolutely. Lots of lessons to be learned and things to experience, and oh boy, and quote unquote enjoy. Yeah, but I really need it. And that's the big thing I've come to a conclusion about now after rambling for over an hour. I need this. I need the hard lessons. I need the good lessons. I need to know my strengths, my weaknesses in a leadership role, and I'm about to jump into that and learn it in this next year alone. And while I'm absolutely hesitant and scared about some things, because I am really going to be stretching myself more than I've ever done before, I am really looking forward to it, because I know that these steps I'm taking are going to get me to the person I want to be. And that's what matters the most. So, there's all that. Out in the open. Comment below what you think. Let me know what you think. Throw down some support if you'd like. I need the support, I think. And I hope you enjoy the journey with me. It is a journey. It's going to be full of twists and turns, ups and downs, but I am here for it, and I hope you will be too. So thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed the drinks that were provided and you relaxed and listened to my rambles. Let me know what you think below. Like the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you haven't yet, because yeah, I think I could use a whole rally of supports as I go down this road. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next video that I post. Take care and see you later. Bye bye.